Well, if it isn't my slightly, only ever so slightly nerdy son, Aleks.
Just slightly.
Yeah. Actually, is it slightly? Or is it like major?
Oh, it's over the top.
Nerdy. So what did you do nerdy this week? Do you got any nerd story? Because you were traveling. You went to San Diego.
Yes,
Did you
I
do
did.
did you do anything that went, God, I'm a nerd?
Well, I
no?
saw the most haunted house in America, or at least that's what it said in the gift shop.
Oh. So you went to the it was a tourist trap place.
Yeah, of course.
But how could it be haunted if it's a tourist trap?
Yeah,
It can't be.
it's kind of hard to get scared when the gift shop is,
Yeah.
20 feet from where the tour is.
Well, that's kind of nerdy. Oh, you did another nerdy thing. You went to the zoo.
Yes.
San Diego Zoo.
I saw all the tigers.
And yeah.
It's huge. The San Diego Zoo is massive.
So the only thing I know about the San Diego Zoo is I used to be a shooter and a field producer for a show called Wild About Animals. And there was an actress named Mariette Hartley who was like from the Rockford Files, show way before your time, hosted the show that I would field produce.
She hosted it.
Yeah, it was called Wild About Animals, and she always hosted it from San Diego Zoo.
Okay.
So that's
it's all wraps back to...
Yeah, everything wraps right back to you. See? Right back to the loin. To the loins. Okay. So yeah, I'm thinking of animals. I'm thinking of Bigfoot. Now let's talk about our guests real quick. We've got Kyle Connolly and Aleks Petakov, both Bigfoot researchers, Bigfoot, I would say influencers, Bigfoot witnesses, and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to go all sorts of places.
Cool.
In our conversation. Yeah, cool. Super cool people. Super cool. You'll love these guys. So, also please subscribe.
Absolutely.
Right? We need subscribers.
Subscribe, like the video.
Yep. Notify
you.
So what do you even hit to get notified? If you want to get notified of new content dropping, what do you do? Explain it. Okay.
So you hit the subscribe button.
Yeah. You don't even know, do you? You hit the notification bell. Right?
You hit the notification bell, and
where is the notification bell?
Oh my gosh. So when you hit subscribe,
yeah,
the notification bell shows up to the right of it.
Oh, okay.
And then what you want to do is hit all.
Oh,
because it defaults to personalized, and that means YouTube thinks they know better than you. They think they are going to show you what they think you want to watch, instead of, hey, I have committed to the Untold Radio Network. I want to watch all their shows. Click the all button so you don't miss anything. Because there's been some complaints about people that have been excited about a show.
Oh, and they get a miss because they're hitting the wrong. They're not hitting all.
Yeah, you want to hit all.
Good. Well, that's enough of that then, I guess. Enough business. That's business. Get the business out of the way. Okay. So, what do you think the fastest not fastest moving animal, but an animal that can make the fastest move?
Fastest
in the world, in the entire world. I guarantee they might have had one at the San Diego Zoo.
Cheetah?
No, not even close. Not even a little bit close. It would be an animal that's 400 million years old. Still alive. 400 million years it's been around. Think about how long that is. That this thing evolved 400 million years ago, and it's still to this day, it can do the fastest move of any animal.
You mean like
you're looking up stuff. You're cheating. I can tell. No, all right, I'm just going to cut to the chase. It is a peacock mantis shrimp. It's not really a true shrimp, but it's a shrimp. Looks exactly like a shrimp. It can punch with the speed or power of a .22 caliber bullet. It can punch so fast. I want you to think about this. Picture moving your arm so quick in the water that it heats the water up to the exact temperature of the sun.
Whoa.
Think about that. Now we're talking speed.
Yeah.
Because of the friction. It creates water friction that gets to the temperature of the sun.
That is, how did you find that out? That is mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing, yeah. When you think it evolved 400 million years ago. Probably when the Earth was as hot as the sun. No. Okay, but the other thing is, what's weird about this animal, it's like an alien animal. Here's why I'm bringing it up. It has the best eyes, too, in the entire world. There's no animal with better eyes.
Better than us?
No, way better. These things have 12 photoreceptors. They can see, you're frozen the funniest expression. Anyhow, they have 12 photoreceptors. They can see colors that we can't even fathom, dude.
So their color spectrum is just way wider.
Plus they can see polarized light.
I wonder what that would be like to even, see that way.
I don't know. I think it would be like rainbows of colors. Just millions of rainbows of colors, every shade. And they actually have these eyes that can communicate with all this like Morse code.
Really? They have like their own language.
They have like their own, they'd have like Morse code in each eye. So they can like form like words, basically.
These things are like superhuman.
They've got to be aliens. So just think about an animal like that hasn't changed 400 million years. It's got all these superpowers, and it's just, a little dude, but can punch so hard you can't keep them in an aquarium. They will literally punch their way out of the glass.
That'd be funny to
and break the glass, break the aquarium. I'm not joking. I'm going to get you one.
No.
We'll fill it with like 80 gallons of water, right? Put one little shrimp in there. Next morning, 80 gallons will be in your living room.
You flood my whole place.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of, are you going to be serving candy at your new house? Trick-or-treaters? Did you get your candy yet?
I haven't got my candy because I eat it all.
It'll be sold out.
I got to wait till the last minute. Otherwise,
you do? I was going to ask you that because, see, there's a bag sitting right here, and I dipped into it last night. And you notice how there's always like one of those variety bags? There's always one thing in there you want really bad. So there was like, I tried like Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, and it was really good. So I'm digging for more of them. So I dig, they're not big. They're tiny, but so I eat another one, then another one, another one, another one. Then I'm like, I can't eat any more of those. So then I think, there's the Heath bar in here. I haven't had one of those in 30 years. So I like peel that bad boy in, pop it in. I'm like, oh my God, that's good. I remember. So I'm like, now I'm digging for Heath bars. One after another, I keep digging. I have like 8 of them. Then I'm like, I can't eat any more of those. No, that's not good for you. So I switched to these little Kit Kats. I do the same thing, and I repeated this with every candy in
there. Ate them all.
And then I'm like, oh my God, my stomach hurts.
Yeah, that's why I can't do it.
Every year. It happens every year. Oh, yeah. And then there were Whoppers, those malted milk balls in there. I did the same with those things. But I'm feeling guilty every candy piece. But they're not big. I mean, don't give me, these aren't like.
They're not the king size.
Well, you've heard of deflation, right, on food, right? It's definitely, I swear to God, that candy's definitely deflated. Like they're small. Everything was really tiny.
Yeah.
So I don't blame them. I mean, they got to make money, but whatever. So we've got Halloween candy out of the way, the world's animal with the fastest moves.
Which, by the way, should we bring up a video of that animal?
What animal?
The shrimp.
Oh, sure. I don't care if you can find one. It's cool because it's multicolored. And of course, they can actually. That's not. Oh, there we go. There he is. That's the little dude. Those eyes. They actually can, they can do these little Morse code things.
Such weird eyes.
Aren't they cool?
They do look alien.
And I love shrimp. But, shrimp are basically spiders underwater. And you love shrimp. I know you do, because every time I put it out, you just like scarf it down. But look at these things. Okay, that's enough. I don't want to get in trouble. Pretty cool. So, all right. So you ever had so I was eating the candy, right? I got a stomach ache, right? But you ever think about what are your other organs doing when you poison your body? I mean, what's your heart doing, right? Because it's got to be feeling like something too. Like all that sugar, your kidneys, your liver, everything's like going into like the alarms ringing. Because you just put a ton of basically poison. Candy's meant to eat one piece and that's it, right?
Yeah, but who does that? I want to know the person that can eat one piece of candy.
Yeah, I don't know. But so, but I was thinking about organs fighting, like your internal organs actually in fights. As I'm like, I'm typing, I'm Googling like your internal, do your organs fight it out? Do they try to steal shit from each other? Well, why not? I mean, wouldn't you?
Why not?
Literally, I believe the human body's got all sorts of like little brains in them, and each organ has got its own brain.
Which makes sense. They're saying that especially with stomachs now, that it has like its own
brain. Oh, it has to. I guarantee they're going to keep discovering intelligence in the organ itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I do this and I find out something really freaky. Just one example. I'll just talk about one example. But I encourage people to look this stuff up because it's really getting interesting. Okay. For instance, you go to bed, right? We all go to bed. You ever woke up hungry in the middle of the night?
Absolutely.
Just woke up?
Yeah.
Like 3 a.m. Like, what the heck? Why did I wake up? You don't have to pee. You don't know what, you just wake up. It's because your brain shot a whole bunch of adrenaline in your body because it was pissed. And the reason it was mad is because it was trying to steal glucose from the liver. And the liver went, hey, no, dude, you're not doing that. I'm using this glucose to clean my liver, to clean itself. It's got a washing cycle. Your liver like washes itself. And it uses this thing called glycogen, which is a relative of glucose, to clean itself. Well, the brain goes, damn, we haven't eaten since, it's supper, 7 o'clock. I'm short of glucose. I need glucose. So he goes and knocks on the liver. Hey, dude, look the other way. I'm going to steal some of your glucose. The liver goes, hell no, don't even go there. So the brain just gets immediately angry and just floods your body with adrenaline.
That is so
probably to get back at the damn liver.
Screw you.
Oh, exactly. People don't think about this stuff. Right now, your whole body's in conflict. Think about when you get gas, right? I guarantee the rectum's going, It's going, no. It's going, it's not happening. And the gas is going, oh yeah, it better. And the rectum's going, no, don't think so. Because I'm at my parents' house or my girlfriend's parents, and that ain't happening. There's a fight that breaks out.
So every time I get gas, I can tell people I'm fighting.
Yeah, you're fighting with your rectum. Anyhow, we'll talk about more examples of that in the future.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun things like that. Well, you get this look on your face like the topic, is it that weird? I thought it wasn't that weird.
No, it's good. I just the thought of your
brain.
Thought of fighting, your brain fighting with your rectum.
Well, no, your brain fighting with your liver. I said it would be your intestines fighting with your rectum.
So they're all fighting with each other.
Oh, and people have way more than one rectum. They think they only have one, right? One O-ring on the outside. No. There's O-rings on the inside too. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
You don't know you have inner O-rings, outer O-rings, O-rings to hold your urine in, your O-rings for all sorts of stuff.
And they all start going.
Well, sure, of course. You get older, they just keep stretching. Why wouldn't they? I mean, do your socks remain elastic their entire life?
No.
Well, I would imagine all your other parts are going to just get loose. You know,
That's a wonderful thought.
it is, of course. It just happens. So, but the thing is, in the old days, okay. So in the old days, we're talking about the liver and the brain, right?
Yeah.
In the old days, caveman, let's just say, we'll just use something cartoony. Cavemen, they would eat and go right to sleep, right? It was bedtime.
Yep. There was
You're
no
fed. That was the
candles,
end
there
of the
was no
day.
light.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you eat at the end of the day. Well, we evolved that way. So the brain was never short of glucose.
But now, is it with all the artificial lighting and everything? It's throwing our...
No, we eat, and then, we eat at 6 o'clock a lot of times. You come
Yep.
from work, you eat. Well, then you go watch TV, whatever, and then
Mhm.
eventually you go to sleep. Maybe you're not going to eat any snacks, and then your brain's like going to be glucose starving because it's been too many hours. So it's going to wake you up. And one of the reasons it wakes you up is survival. It's saying, dude, get down to the refrigerator now. You need a bowl of cereal.
Snack.
Get me a cookie or something. I need glucose. And one of the best things to do is right before you go to bed is to eat like an oat bar, complex carbohydrates that would release glucose slower. So right before you go to bed, eat an oat bar.
Eat an oat bar.
But if you eat an oat bar every night before you went to bed, you'd probably gain weight, right? You can't win. You basically can't win.
I don't need help gaining weight.
You can't win with these fighting organs.
No.
They're just going to fight and battle it out no matter what. We just don't know all the ways that they're combating each other.
So I can either wake up or gain weight.
Dude, we don't even know what some organs are. They don't even know what they're for. Appendix.
Yeah. What is that for?
We kind of know what the gallbladder is, but yeah, we take it out of people and just toss it in the trash.
What about the tonsils? Have we figured that out?
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, they have like theories, oh, it's for the immune system. But do they really know? I don't know. Do they really know? I don't know.
Probably not.
Maybe not. And by the way, you can tell me to change the topic. So one of the things that we're talking about organs, right? Just amazing. But another thing that there's something with plants that very few ever think about. I did a lot when I was a kid, and here why. I knew plants could see. They actually have eyesight. Did you ever think about that?
No.
Did you ever wake up in the morning, Aleks, and just go, I wonder if my house plant can see me?
Well, that's I don't even know what to say that. Like, how did you find that out?
Well, because when I was a kid, we grew grapes.
You grew grapes.
We had grapevines, right?
Yeah.
And the grapevine would see a stick, like there'd be a stake in the other part of the garden, way on the other side. It would send a shoot right for that stake. And it would just go straight for it and do it quick. So we knew it was there.
It just knew.
Which I went, as a kid, he's a young kid, I'm like, Dad, can plants see? And he said, of course they can. That was your grandfather. He probably wouldn't, he didn't explain anything. He said, yeah, of course he can, walk away.
Never took you aside and told you why.
Never, right, exactly. He's like, figure it out yourself, kid. Okay. So then I just kind of presumed it couldn't. I actually did experiments, even at I think it was probably 9. I was doing experiments to see how quick they could see. I tried to fool them, tried to do weird things, and they still could see. They knew what was going on. You cannot fool a grape plant. But then as I got older, I also realized other plants certainly had vision. They proved it to me.
When were you, so you were convinced pretty immediately?
Pretty what?
Pretty immediately?
Yeah. What? Is that a word? A phrase? Pretty immediately.
That could have been said better.
Pretty immediately. Did you ever hear a phrase and it just doesn't sound right?
Yeah, I was hoping you would call me out on that.
Anyhow, so So then, you do research on this stuff, which I do. I'll just because I think it's better to just, I don't just sit there all night and just research Bigfoot. I try to change it up because here's why I like to change it up, because someday dots start connecting with other mysteries that I've thought about with another animal. Suddenly there'll be a dot connecting from something I learned about a mantis shrimp. Do you know what I mean? Like we're talking about their vision, how amazing it is. Because then you learn about, I didn't know there was even that kind of vision. Oh, maybe Bigfoots have that kind of vision. You see the connections that you can make.
Yeah. So picking stuff up from different fields.
Right. So researchers, I definitely strongly, research plants. Research everything. Research shrimp. Research ocean creatures. River animals. Water. This is blah, blah, blah. Just everything. It all
can I ask you a question?
It all connects.
So if someone is interested in being a Bigfoot researcher, do you feel like the biggest breakthroughs are going to be from people that are picking stuff up from different fields and applying it to Bigfoot research?
Correct. That's what I think. I think the best researcher is the one that look at the giant picture. Don't stare at the tree. Look at the forest.
Got
it. That's my feeling anyhow. I don't know if it's helped me, but it has. It has allowed me to connect some pretty cool dots. For some weird reason, sometimes your brain will connect dots that you don't even know why. It's because of just kind of a collective knowledge that you get on all sorts of topics. So anyhow, there are plants, parasitic plants, that can not only try to disguise themselves, but how would they do that? They can actually change shape based on their host plant. And years ago, they used to think, how did this plant? This isn't this plant. This is poison ivy. This is, some plant from way over here, and it's snuck over and it's entwined and it's trying to disguise. And they were like, well, maybe plants are exchanging DNA. Follow me? So then they did experiments way back in the 60s, and they would use fake plants, and they would still mimic them.
They would mimic the fake.
Yeah, I think that study happened in Australia back in the 64 or whatever, in the mid 60s. They realized, no, these plants can freaking see. They're looking at the other plant. They're not exchanging DNA. They have to be seen. It's the only way they could ever know what it looked like.
Because they couldn't do that with a fake plant.
No,
you know what I mean? They couldn't exchange the DNA.
Right. So it was looking at the fake plant, studying. It's the only explanation. Couldn't have been communicating by roots. Couldn't have been doing that. It had to use vision. I'm not saying vision like ours.
Yeah, a type.
But there's still a vision. Yeah, that there's still these. But it also doesn't prove they have a brain.
Some way of processing.
Of course.
Yeah,
that's amazing to me. And once again, we don't know what level. For all we know, plants are smarter than us. For all we know, we don't know. Can you change shape? Well, I know you could have eaten.
I've changed shape before.
No, yeah, I've eaten a lot of Halloween candy. Yeah. I'm talking you know what I mean? Can you make yourself look like a cuttlefish? You know what I mean? No, you can't.
Yeah, no, I can't do that.
But look at a cuttlefish. It can do that too. It can not only change shape. I think we've talked about cuttlefish. Change 3D shape and color and blinking and a complex television screen. I mean, that's we underestimate the intelligence of small things.
Yeah.
We think we're superior all the time. Humans think
there's a lot that other creatures can do way superior to us.
Yeah. So anyhow, there's a plant. Okay, it's called Bacillotropholeos lato. That's the scientific name. It's another parasitic plant. Can change shape to match the shape of its leaves to mimic other plants. It can even change the amount of leaves.
The amount of leaves.
The length of everything. Yep. So I just think that's cool as hell. Changes shape like the headlights that are coming. Have you you've seen your brother's headlights, right?
Yeah.
They're considered smart headlights on a Tesla.
I didn't know that about his headlights.
Oh, they are smart, but they haven't been able to unleash their capabilities, which I'm sure they'll just unlock them. Like, because a new law just passed that will allow, for the first time, smart augmented headlights. What does
Good.
that mean? That
Yeah.
means they're going to be able to project an arrow on the road for you to tell you to turn
Cool,
on your GPS. It's going to project the road conditions. So maybe there'll be a snowflake or a symbol for ice. It'll change shape to look at the surroundings. It'll adapt. Let's say you're driving down a wide freeway with trees on both sides. It'll adapt to light those up. It'll know what oncoming traffic is coming. It'll know the speed limit. It'll project the speed limit on the road for you.
Oh, that's cool. That's
cool. This stuff, they literally just made it legal like today.
So that they now can do these type of things in the cars.
Yep. And that's going to be a big game changer, because suddenly you're going to have headlights doing all sorts of crazy things. They're going to be swooping and swamping all over. So basically the info will be endless, Yeah, but see, like the Tesla will do like a light show, a Christmas show. But I think they only allow the light show, the smart headlights, to become unlocked when the car is parked.
Which would make sense
Right. I think now, obviously, headlights have been dumb since ever they invented the high-low beam. That's all they do. They just go high and low beam. They don't do anything else.
Now, do you think we'll have more accidents because they'll be distracting for other drivers?
No, because they'll know there's other drivers. They won't do that stuff. They'll aim it, they'll be augmented. They're intelligent. They're going to use AI. Very simple AI, but they're going to use AI. So there you go.
Cool.
Yeah, I just think it's cool. I thought that was kind of exciting. It'll give you one more reason to get out of that old Toyota you're driving. Because I know I don't have a car with any smart headlights, but I thought, I'll definitely want to get one when one comes out.
Yeah.
That's just so cool. Smart headlights, stuff you don't think about.
You don't.
Nobody thinks about smart. Who woke up this morning in our audience and thought, oh, boy, I really want smart headlights. But now when
I didn't.
No, I know. But now when I describe them, everybody's like, okay, I want them. Maybe we'll be able to swap them out.
But I can keep that Toyota.
Just pop them babies out, go to the auto store, go on eBay and buy some nice Chinese smart headlights, pop them in that Toyota, and away you go.
And then they'll fail 10 feet from the driveway.
Maybe. You don't know. They don't know, or they'll be they'll be mapping the world. Okay. One last thing, and then I think we'll probably have our guests, I would hope.
Yeah, they're in the back room, so they're ready for us.
So another thing, too, have you ever wondered, when it rains, you get that smell like, oh, it smells so good.
Yeah, that fresh smell.
Have you ever wondered what is the fresh smell? Do you know?
Nature.
Well, that would be most people's answer, I'm sure. It's a chemical smell called petrichor.
Petrichor.
P-E-T-O-C-H-O-R-E. Petrichor. And that's a smell that's been classified that humans can smell better than almost anything in the world, which is I wonder why. We can smell petrichor 5 parts per trillion.
Which is
5 parts per trillion. We can smell petrichor.
It's got to be some reason, adaptive evolution.
I don't know. I was wondering that. Yeah, literally, I knew I wanted to talk about it, but I was wondering that today. What is the reason that we can smell it so good? So what would have been, why did we evolve, to smell petrichor? And it smells more when you get a light rain versus like a heavy rain. It's going to smell more of it, more petrichor. Yep. And it's produced by a bacteria called Streptomycin. It's in the soil, basically, and other plant oils. But combined, it's called petrichor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what do you have a thought on
No,
why
I
we can
don't. I
smell
really
something?
couldn't came up with a big zip. What would be the reason? So if you can come up with any reasons, audience, put it in the actual comments.
Yes. Give us your
Why would we
theory.
be able to smell petrichor 5 parts per trillion? For instance, a shark can smell blood like 5 parts per billion, as an example. So that we can smell petrichor much better than a shark or even a hound dog can smell scent. Why? I really puzzled over that. Why did we evolve? Or was it just the creator going, "Oh, this is just such a pleasant thing. I want you to all to enjoy it." Who knows? I don't know. Maybe there's
I don't have a
energy in it.
clue.
Maybe, who knows? Petrichor. So there you go. So with that, we're going to bring Kyle Connolly and Aleks Petakov. And Aleks and Kyle both have their own podcast.
Awesome.
And I'm sure they'll talk about that. Oh, there they are.
Hey guys.
2 guys with beards. So we should have done this. We should have just been 2 bearded Bigfoot guys.
We got the beardless and the bearded.
Yeah, beardless.
Right.
Well, you can grow a little bit of a beard. I can hardly even. My beard would be just like this white. I'd look like Santa Claus if I grew one. So anyhow. So how you guys doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what have you been up to, Aleks, in the last? You're like the world traveler. You're just like never home. So where have you been the last month?
The last month has been a little slower than usual, I must say, but I did manage to get out to Whitehall, New York for the Whitehall Sasquatch Calling Festival, which is a lot of fun. You obviously, Doug, know about Whitehall. You guys did a Monster Quest episode up there.
Yep.
So, the Aber Road incident in that area is pretty well known for some pretty credible reports involving multiple law enforcement agencies.
Did you get to Aber Road and did you see the tree? The creature was like pacing.
Yeah, so the telephone pole is no longer there, but you kind of get the general sense for the area. Paul Bartholomew took us out to the spot, and in my view, he's one of the most knowledgeable researchers in the Northeast when it comes to the Sasquatch topic in the Adirondacks, upstate New York, and then Vermont area. Amazing. So we got to go out there, and in the past 4 to 5 years, I should say, the town of Whitehall has really embraced the Sasquatch topic, and they have a Sasquatch Calling Festival, which isn't your typical Bigfoot convention or like a town festival. It's part town festival, part they have speakers. The people like Steve Coles will be there. Lots of other folks that are sort of involved in the Bigfoot topic, and it concludes with a literal Sasquatch Calling Festival.
Did you do that? Did you participate in that?
I didn't participate. I got to be one of the judges though, so that was a lot of fun. So there's a kids challenge and an adult one. So the kids will line up and everyone does their Bigfoot calls, and then the adults do it as well. And there's 3 winners, a first, second, third, and it's just such a fun, hilarious time. And we had this one lady that she starts stomping on this thing and stomping on the stage and screaming as loud as she can. It's a family fun event. People get upset. They say, "Oh, this isn't serious." It's not supposed to be. It's just a fun event that it shows how the town has embraced from 20 years ago, maybe, where they really, if you talked about Bigfoot in town, you were kind of seen as a weirdo. Nobody wanted to embrace that sort of Aber Road incident, and now.
Well, did you get to meet any of the policemen that saw it?
So I've met Brian Gosselin before. I saw him this year at the festival, but I believe I met him. Must have been summer of 2020. We did a film up in the Adirondacks region, and we covered the Aber Road incident as well.
So you've met Brian.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, I'm just telling you, there's a tree there. That thing was seen pacing too.
Yeah.
And it's still there. It was really cool. It's kind of out in the middle of a field, but it was seen again. Like walking, pacing back and forth in front of that tree.
It was this very interesting sequence of events, that sighting. And it's just so interesting, the legacy of it. I mean, it's almost 50 years to the date, about 40-something years at this point. We're still talking about it. That just shows the impact of this one particular series of events. And I mean, there's obviously been sightings since then in Whitehall, but that area now is being populated by Amish, believe it or not.
Really?
Back in the 70s, there weren't many houses in this area. It was pretty rural. So kids would go out there and shoot their guns and, do kind of stuff that you do in the country. And since then, there's been a lot of Amish that have moved in. So there's houses, and it's a little more developed than it would have been even 10, 15 years ago. So you'll be driving on 8-Bit Road, and all of a sudden you have an Amish horse and buggy ride by, and you're kind of confused for a moment. But that's how the area has sort of changed.
Well, it's a nice change, though. It's picturesque. It's nice.
Oh, it's still just as beautiful, and there's just as many rural spots still within driving range from Whitehall.
If you're gonna have some weird change in your small town community, I'm sure everybody welcomes the Amish.
Yes, yeah, they're definitely they bring in money and business and
great people.
Yeah, upstate New York seems to be a big destination for Amish.
Yeah, no, I've got so many memories in that Whitehall area. It's just such a cool, neat area.
Absolutely.
Right down to we got our motorhome stuck in some farm field that we were camped at one night. And guy just came out with his tractor and pulled us out. Super nice people. Definitely. So, Kyle.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about, we want to hear your sighting. It's one of the things. And then, Aleks, we got to talk about some of your experiences too. But Kyle, you had one of the craziest experiences I've ever heard, because it was in the light in the daytime.
Yeah, yes, sir. So 1994, my family and I went on a camping trip to October Mountain in the Berkshires, Massachusetts. We'd gone up there periodically over the course of 5 or 6 years, probably, kind of switching back and forth between October and Mount Greylock. So we were familiar with the area, but we tried to go to different places each time, just to kind of mix it up, make it a little more fun. I was 14 at the time of this incident. So it was myself, my stepdad, my mother, and then our family friends, Chris, his wife, his young daughter, who I think was around 4 at the time, and then his son, I think, was around 9. So we kind of went off the beaten path down this dirt road, or kind of road turns into dirt road, and pulled off that to the side, and kind of like one of those little turnaround areas, parked the campers back to back, set up the little campsite, alongside them, between the campers and where the wood line started. And so the first night, we were sitting outside eating, listening to music. Chris and his family had their dog with them. It's a little, terrier type of dog. And, the first thing that we noticed happening was something was coming into camp. Something was flying into camp, landing at our feet, like around the campfire and by the chairs. You could hear it, the trajectory coming through the leaves. You could hear it.
So, like a rock, you mean?
So yeah, we ended up finding 4 or 5 of them around there, kind of scattered about the camp, in the areas that we heard them hit, because you could hear the thud when they landed on the ground, and you could hear them coming through the leaves.
And I would imagine everybody thought it's just somebody from another campsite, or.
Yeah, I say this a lot. When you don't know, you don't know. And I know it sounds funny, but if you have no idea about these things, I think that, and especially back then, where it was talked about a lot less, I think that people just tend to give it a different explanation, a more reasonable explanation, right? So acorns, stick, hillbillies in the woods, drunks, who knows? I don't know what they were thinking at the time, but they brushed it off. So that was the first thing that happened. Excuse me. After that, we heard what sounded like their dog in the woods. I mean, it sounded like it was 30 or 40 yards in the woods. And, it was indistinguishable mimic. We didn't know it was a mimic at the time. So his wife jumps up screaming, oh my God, the dog, how did it get in the woods? You got to go get the dog. You got to get the dog. Well, the dog was laying right at Chris's feet. So again, another weird thing that kind of just got brushed off. Like, maybe there's another dog in the area, even though it sounded exactly like their dog. I mean, it was.
Do you remember actually being puzzled yourself at that age?
I remember, yeah. I was 14. I wasn't like a little kid, I was, early teens. So I had at least a little, I knew kind of what was going on, and I knew that was weird. It was just
Yeah.
strange, you know? And so that was it for when we were out there. Went to bed, woke up the next morning, and we had left the coolers and stuff out, and someone had gone in one of the coolers and taken out a jelly jar. And I'm talking about a big one. Like it was, you know, one of the extra big ones, because there was, you know, 3 kids there, and then the adults and peanut butter and jelly's easy and cheap. It had taken the lid off. Didn't take anything out, but it had taken the lid off. And it left the jar, and it left the lid right next to it.
In the middle of the night. Middle of the night. No one heard anything. No one saw nobody
anything.
touched it, and there's no raccoons. Nothing touched it that whole night then.
No. So who knows? It could have been done, you know, right prior to waking up in the morning. We were getting up around 5:30, maybe, I would say 6. So
that's so weird.
Yeah, it was very strange. And it was left right on top of the cooler. So they opened it, took it out, took the top off, closed the lid, and put it back on top.
And left it on top versus in the cooler.
Right.
How big of a jar was it? I'm asking for a reason.
It was like a big jar. I mean, it was, you know, well, not probably that big around.
Okay.
You know,
Plastic, glass?
Glass.
Do you remember the label on it by any chance? What was it, a commercially bought?
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure it was like a, you know, whatever, the big brand Smuckers.
Yeah, like a Costco type jar.
Yeah, something like that.
All right,
yeah.
All right.
So then it was, so then that happened that night. So then the second night, nothing happened during the day at all. Actually a little bit. So the rocks came during the day. Then the second night, when we went to bed, Chris's camper was behind ours, and he got woken up, startled, like completely freaked out. It went after what happened. He explained it like it felt like a car hit his trailer. He said it was a violent collision is what it felt like and sounded like, to the point that when he just freaked out, came running out, and, you know, half awake, boxers or underwear, and grabbed the gun on the way out and did his little recon around the campsite to see if there was anything, and he didn't see anything. So again, you know, another thing just kind of, I guess, brushed off. But I think that one, made him and my dad really start to kind of wonder a little bit.
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah, it was a little different. You know, there was no handprints, there was no anything. It just was this really loud bang, and it shook the whole trailer. Woke everybody up in there, but I didn't hear anything. We didn't wake up at all. Nobody in ours. So, so on the third day is we had planned to go on a hike to this area that was planned out by Chris. Chris was a military guy. Chris was a Marine, like, you know, one of the baddest of the bad, sniper school, recon, special, whatever. I don't know.
Tough guy.
He was a bad dude. And even in his 60s, he's a bad guy. He's a bad dude now. And there's nothing on the planet that scares this guy. He knows his way around the woods. You know, he had wilderness training, he had weapons training, all that stuff. So that's who Chris is. So Chris planned out the whole hike. We were going to walk this route between these two ridges, circle around, and go through this like pine area of the forest down to where this stream and like waterfall area was. So that's what we did. We started out on the hike. So we're walking probably, I'd say maybe 6 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes into the hike. And then the rocks start coming, but now they're coming from this high ridge on the right side of us. And they're landing within just a foot or two, all behind us. And so, you know, the dads are like, what's going on? Like, this is happening again. Now it's starting to get them angry. Chris pulled out his gun, made a couple threats to, you know, I guess what he thought may have been like hillbilly meth heads. I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking this was.
Nothing worse, huh?
Yeah. But, you know, I don't know what he was thinking this was. It was never discussed, like, afterwards, what he thought it was. But, made a couple threats. These kids are my number one priority. I am trained with this gun. I will use it if I have to. You don't want to see that. And then he fired a shot in the air. When he fired that shot in the air, that whole ridge, it just turned to hell. I mean, it was like a team of football players or like wrestlers or, just those most giant guys in the world, like 15 of them were running full speed as fast as they could through there. You could see the trees, like some of the bush, like bending as this is happening. You're hearing snapping, and I'm talking about like loud snaps that echo through the air around you. And you're feeling the reverberation coming right down that ridge into the ground below your feet. You can feel the vibration.
Do you think it was one animal, Kyle, or more than one?
I believe so. I believe it was one. Looking back on it now, I believe it was one. And people will figure out why. I think towards the end, why I think it was just one. So that place lights up, and it's the loudest, most like violent noise I've ever heard in the woods. So we continue forward. Now, looking back on it, people go, "You went forward?" Well, I think that looking back, Chris's whole plan was these ridges end. They slope down and they turn to the left. And there's one on the right and one on the left. The one on the right is bigger than the one on the left. So I think he was thinking that if we make this turn, we can come around the backside of the left-hand ridge. Now there's a buffer between us and whatever's over there on that other ridge, right? So we have that ridge, then the little like creek bed area, that's lower. Then the left-hand ridge, we have space between us. I think that's the only logical thing I can imagine. He's a military guy, so he kind of, knew what he was doing. So as we start to turn that corner, those ridges end, and there's a clear separation between where the pine forest starts and the rest of like the overgrowth forest and hardwood forest is. And that where that starts, it's very thick. You can't see anything. It's if like it's the forests around here in New England, like I live in Connecticut, they're a lot of them are pretty much the same. There's just like a lot of brush and prickers and I don't know, all these, nothing. It's not pretty. Some spots are, but when it's like that, it's not pretty. It's really thick. It's hard to get through. Yeah. And that's what this was. So we came around a corner. There's that line of bushes, and then the open pine forest in front of us, and the ridge to our left. And this thing steps out. One step. I mean, we didn't see anything at all over there. One step, and it's directly in front of us, right behind a, some either cedar or pine. It was kind of a reddish brown color, green needles on it, and it had a split. So it connected way at the bottom, and it split like this and went out, up, towards the sky. So he stepped directly behind this thing, and he was framed out in it. So you could see from his manhood is where basically it started. And then it kind of came up where you could see his shoulders, his neck, his face, chest, stomach, all that. He reached his hand out. There was a hardwood tree next to that tree. I would say it was probably 10 inches around, if I had to guess. And he reached his hand out and grabbed that tree. And I remember the hand encompassing that whole tree. I mean, it wrapped right around there like you would wrap your hand around a pony can. And the fingers were, if they weren't touching, they were darn close. They were thick like bananas. You could see the fingernails. They looked thick, dirty. Some of them looked cracked. And then here's this thing now. I'm staring right at it. I mean, it's like looking at a picture frame at this point.
Gosh.
And he starts to do this sway. Real slow and subtle.
It was that slow, huh? Okay.
It was very slow and subtle.
Let's stop right there for a minute. Okay,
Sure.
So we got this creature standing there. You can see it from the waist up, basically, right?
Yes,
where
sir.
it's Yeah, you called it his manhood, and it's swaying. And I'm just picturing the scene with you guys. Are you guys single file? Are you spread out left and right?
So the dads are next to each other.
Right.
I was on the left-hand side of my dad at the time. Chris's
Okay.
son is now behind him with his face in his dad's butt, weeping. I mean, sobbing.
Oh,
It's like 9 years old. He was a
so
little
he's
kid.
freaked out. So
He's
there's already
freaked
one
out.
freaked out. Okay.
Chris had his gun in his hand. Since all that happened there, he never raised it to use it. I don't know why. We've never talked about it since. Kind of old school guys, you know, when it was talked about afterwards, it was very brief, very short. It took me 30 years to get my dad to just go, yep. And that was his acknowledgement that this happened. For many years, he would say, we don't know what happened. We don't know what it was.
So at this point in the story, Aleks, what are you? I mean, I know you've heard this story, but at this point in the story, what are you thinking? What's going through your brain when you're hearing this, Aleks?
Well, I mean, to me, obviously, the October Mountain area, I'm familiar with the history of reports in that area of Western Massachusetts. I actually just pulled up a bunch of stuff that I'm going to send to Kyle after
Nice.
2015 on the BFRO that some hikers actually got a large rock thrown at them on October Mountain. And there's a video that was put on YouTube this past summer or last summer, something along those lines, essentially that it was in the local news as well. It was a group of campers up there around a pond at October Mountain State Park that were basically terrorized all night, and they had seen this kind of creature, similar description. And I have the report here as well. I'm looking at it. And then I'm aware of a research group called Squatchachusetts.
Yeah.
It's based out of Massachusetts. Jonathan Wilk, the founder, fantastic folks. They have heavily looked into that area, and they've actually had a possible thermal kind of sighting on one of those therms that doesn't record, of a creature walking back and forth in the same area those picnickers got pelted by rocks and other things happened. And their sighting was in 1983. You said yours was in 1993. So there's
94, but yeah.
I mean, almost a decade in between. And then you have other reports, and that whole Western Massachusetts area, for folks that think Massachusetts is just all Boston, all cities, it's that eastern part is where Boston and all the urban areas are. I mean, you have the Bridgewater Triangle, there's some woods there, but it's very urban compared to Western Mass. And I live in New Hampshire, which is the second most forested state in the country. And parts of Western Massachusetts look pretty much identical. I mean, we share a border with sort of central Massachusetts. And I've been to Savoy State Park. That's actually where Jonathan Wilk had a sighting, which is one of my favorites, of two creatures while patrolling, working in the state park there, picking up trash on a rainy night, and saw two of these things, a larger one and a smaller one, that eventually, down the road, he founded the research group Squatchachusetts. But Mount Greylock as well has had sightings, which is separated from October Mountain, I believe, just by the city of Pittsfield. But it's all woods all around there. And the Appalachian Trail goes essentially right past both October Mountain and Mount Greylock up into Vermont. And we know up and down the East Coast, a lot of sightings happen in or around the Appalachian Trail. So, I mean, Kyle's story is really interesting. And I guess I should say I'm not really surprised, because it fits a pattern in that.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, you're not surprised.
Yeah.
What do you think you would have done, Aleks, at 14, standing next to your parent, and this thing's standing in front of you at 14? You just like, what in the world? Would you have? I can't even imagine. Yeah.
I mean, if you're not aware of it, I think that's at 14, I probably was aware with the Bigfoot topic. So I would have, I don't know how I would have reacted, but if you don't have an awareness, I think that's where a lot of the trauma comes in so many of the encounters that I've heard, especially from the New England area. Being a New England guy, I focused heavily in the past on sightings in this region. And time again, I hear of stories that happened in the 90s or the 80s or the 70s where folks, they thought, even if they had any awareness of Bigfoot, they thought it was California, Oregon. They thought they saw a monster in the woods. They didn't connect it with Bigfoot until maybe even up until Monster Quest or Finding Bigfoot was on TV.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people when they first made the connection. So
they didn't even know how to place it.
Exactly. It was, I mean, I have one friend, for example, in Connecticut who had a sighting towards the coast of Connecticut, the eastern part of the state, near Rhode Island, near the Mohegan Reservation, that sort of area, had a sighting in that area of what he described as a strange scarecrow creature that sat up. And, that's the way he described it, as this brown thing that the encounter happened so quick, he described it as a scarecrow. And they had a fort out there in the woods, and they had another incident where they were paralleled by something, and they had that weird, we're being watched kind of feeling. But again, he didn't realize until years later, well, maybe that was a Bigfoot. He thought it was a scarecrow creature. He was a teenager at the time. So I don't know how old. So it's
God knows what a scarecrow creature would be, but
I don't want to know. But it's just interesting because it's how our mind tries to make sense of something that either we're told isn't supposed to exist, or that we have no awareness of at all.
Well, back to you, Kyle. Did your parents? I mean, did the adults try to protect you kids at this point?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I guess, I guess the best that they could. I think that they were probably both completely, in shock too. Like I said, Chris had a gun in his hand. He was a trained military guy, and he never once even tried to use it.
I bet you're glad he didn't.
I am glad, because who knows what would have happened at that point. But so my dad, I was on the left-hand side. He did that whole dad thing, like, if you've ever been out with your dad and there's anything going on in front of him that seems sketchy, and they do this, like where they reach their arm and they go push you kind of towards their back, right? They kind of move you gently around their back. Well, that's what he did. I was still a pretty tall kid at that time. So and my dad's was, always, my stepdad's not really that tall. So I was behind him, but I could still see right between him and Chris. And so that's what I was doing. I was staring right between them. We talked about this, Doug, when you were on my show. The creature was visibly erect. That was one thing that I noticed. It was hard not to, just because of kind of how it all transpired. I don't know, not to get into weird, but it didn't look like ours did.
Well, that's not weird, because it's basically high information.
Yeah.
Once you get past the chuckle factor, it's important. It's important info. I mean, how many people have been standing that close and seen the details of the fingernails, and the details of the rest of the anatomy? So go ahead and describe what you saw.
So I mean, the only way I could describe what it looked like is and I didn't know this then. It took me, kind of researching, looking at videos and magazines and books and stuff to figure out that it looked like it may have been sheathed, similar to like a dog or what I later kind of thought maybe more closely resembled like a chimpanzee. And you said you used the word baculum. I'd never heard the term before, but something like that. So he's swaying in between the tree. He's got his hand on this hard tree next to him, which I don't know, maybe an oak or something, 10 inches around, 30 to 40 feet tall. He's shaking this tree. And when I try to describe this to people, you remember, this is one hand, one arm. He's not, and when he's swaying, he's kind of swaying very gently. So he's not using his body to do this. He's just using his arm. And he's shaking this tree. And I mean, looks like it's in the worst hurricane you've ever seen in your life. I fully believe if he wanted to, if he took his hand and in one real quick motion went like this, he could snap it right off. I fully believe that.
Jeez. And what was the diameter again?
Probably about 10 inches.
And you felt he could snap?
100%.
Wow.
There was no question in my mind now, like looking back at him, the way he was built, what he was doing with that one arm. I mean, this thing was bending like in such a violent way that it wouldn't have taken a whole lot. So I think he probably could. So anyway, he's swaying, he's shaking the tree. He ends up sticking his tongue out of his mouth, and he tilts his head towards the sky. And he does this like maybe 3 times, 4 times. I don't remember exactly. Then when he's done, he's looking at us and he curls his lips back to show his teeth. And it wasn't even like didn't even look like like he was like growling or anything. It just like he was showing them. It was very strange. And then at this point, like Chris kind of started trying to talk to my dad. There's, this is like a time stands still, but it's in fast forward at the same time. You're feeling the blood rush to the surface of your skin. Like I'm feeling flush. I'm starting to feel nauseous. Chris's son was so scared he urinated. The word terror is like the only word that really fits. It's terror. It's like I'm not making it out of here. There's no way. This thing can do anything it wants to any one of us at any given moment. The physical prowess of this thing is what sticks with me the most. You're talking about probably 8 feet tall, maybe more, shoulders that were so wide, the frame, and he wasn't heavily muscled. It wasn't like a bodybuilder. It was more like a basketball player or like a swimmer, where the muscles are very defined, and you can see the separation in all of them. He had shoulders that were so wide, and they were so round. That was the other thing I remember. They were almost perfectly round, like melons or cantaloupes or something. I don't know. His biceps weren't very bulky. As a matter of fact, his forearm muscles were what really stood out to me. Was that muscle that connects from your elbow? If you were to swing a hammer a lot, that like one that goes up out here, kind of puffs up. I don't know what it's called. I don't know a scientific term, but that was the muscle that on his arm that stood out the most. It was very big. His head was really large, but he had a short forehead that sloped back. It was squared off, and his hair was pretty sparse. He had a kind of a ridge down the center that was like a point, but not that normal conical that kind of rises up a lot. His head, I would say, was more square, and then there was just this like short kind of crest in the middle of his head. He looked a Native American to me. It's like I say this over and over. His features look Native American. He had very high cheekbones that you could see very well, deep set eyes, the thick brow ridge. Like I said, a short forehead that sloped back. He had creases in his forehead. He had the lines that came down from his nose to the outside of his mouth. He had hair that came down from his sideburns to here, and it came up just to the corners of his mouth. So there was no mustache, just to the corners. Wide nose with, very little. It was pretty flat. It wasn't, bulbous or anything like that. His eyes were just dark. He may have had little whites in the corners, but not much.
Well, okay. I somehow missed the details of the forehead. I know the wrinkles, but what about the hair on the forehead?
Yeah, so the hair, like I said, the forehead was short and the hair started up kind of high. It wasn't really thick. It was kind of wispy looking, like thinning hair would be on a normal male. You could see through it on the sides here. As it got to the back, it got a little thicker. It wasn't very long, maybe 3 inches at most, I would say. And he kind of came around like this and down here and connected to the sideburns and the beard. And then he had his whole body was covered, but it was in different places. It was different. So his shoulders, the hair was thicker on the shoulders. As it came down the arms, it thinned out towards the elbow and then the top of the forearm. But as it got towards the hand, it started to get thicker again. And on the hand, the hair was thick and it almost hung over the first knuckle, just maybe a couple inches, like fringe, You could see through his hair on his chest and his stomach. His pecs were not puffy, but very, very well defined. And the muscles, if you've ever watched any bodybuilders, like the real big guys, there's a difference between the guys who are younger and the guys who are older, who've been doing it for longer. And the difference is they call muscle maturity.
Yeah.
If you do this for a long enough time, your muscles will look similar to each other. They'll be big, they'll be defined, but there's something about it that where they get more dense and they look more hard.
Yeah.
And that's what these things look. They just looked so thick and hard, like I don't know. He just looks so powerful, man. So
let's I want to kind of go back a little bit.
Sure.
I'm trying to break this sighting down because it's so amazing. I'm not trying to interrupt you, but I really feel that we can maybe discuss some of the things like putting the head back.
Yeah.
Sticking its tongue out. That's bizarre. So I want to ask you, Aleks. Petakov, I guess I got two Alexes here. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have any idea what it might have been doing, Aleks?
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, that is so, it's a tough question, I suppose. I mean, I should say, obviously, I wish every eyewitness had as detailed of a recollection as Kyle does. I mean, he absolutely, given the circumstances, had a really good chance to look at this thing and notice features that I don't think every eyewitness has a chance to, or maybe in that sort of adrenaline or the fear that takes over, they might not notice those details. But given that, just as I mentioned earlier, the history of aggressive reports in that October Mountain area, I mean, I can only speculate that perhaps there's just a territorial aspect to it. Maybe these things get pleasure out of disturbing humans. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a certain Joker kind of humorous element to it where they seem to want to, where a lot of the interactions that are initiated by them seem to be kind of at the expense of human beings. Now, this obviously seems like it has a little bit more of an aggressive take to it. And the only thing I can possibly think of is looking at great apes, so chimps and gorillas and those sorts of things. And I've been doing a lot of that lately for some of my own research and noticing some of the characteristics that they do, you know, such as the tongue thing with showing the teeth. Obviously, that's a very aggressive thing. And I'm not saying Sasquatch are akin to a gorilla.
Oh, yeah. Have you heard of other primates sticking their tongue out for aggression?
I mean, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, gibbons might be ones that do that. Oh, okay. But gibbons are a lesser primate. They're not exactly one of the great apes. But there's obviously so many different types of primates all along that branch. But the ones the most similar to us, chimps, gorillas, and orangutans, I believe orangutans do as well, stick the tongue out, or it's part of some kind of a display. Whether or not they're showing their teeth and also sticking their tongue out, I'm not sure. But,
yeah, you are kind of right there. I guess I do remember orangutans being more. They seem to do weird things with their teeth, their tongue, their lips. Certainly in the movies, you know, the trained orangutan or the tame ones. But you do wonder, what does that? I wonder if anybody's done any studies. What does that mean in the wild?
I can say, though, that I have heard of a couple other sightings where the tongue has been seen. One of them was a sighting in New Hampshire that I've chronicled for a little bit in Hollis, New Hampshire in the 1970s. I've heard also conflicting information that may have been a hoax sighting, but there was a detail that a tongue was sort of stuck out after this gentleman came out of a trailer and brushed this thing's shoulder, and the tongue was stuck out for whatever reason. So it's an interesting one. I mean, it reminds me honestly of some of those tribal masks out in British Columbia that the Salish and some of those other tribes have, you have those primate-like faces where there's the teeth being shown. Yeah. I don't know if there's one with the tongue out. I'm not sure, but I know some of those Zonaquah totems look very interesting, where you see that kind of interesting facial structure, that how those folks would have had access to see what ape-like facial features are in remote British Columbia hundreds of years ago. I mean, that's anybody's guess, obviously, how they would have known that. But that's sort of one thing that it reminded me of.
Super weird. I wonder if we can, find anything in the journals of apes doing that, because that would be significant, Kyle.
Yeah. So, I've thought about it and looked into some things. I've done work with animals myself over the years, and horses do something similar. Cats even do something. It's called the Flehmen response, I believe, is what it's called.
I'm gonna write that down.
It's a transferring of hormones, hormones and scents through the mouth to the nostrils.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever had a cat. When it finds a new scent, have you ever seen it go like this? Like,
I guess I just probably have never noticed.
So when they pick up a new scent that they don't know, they a lot of times will keep their mouth open. Sometimes even with their tongue out. I'm not saying that's what it is, but other animals do this for that purpose. So
I'm just not aware of any hominids that do.
Right, exactly. So
have you ever thought in your life that a Bigfoot would throw his head back and stick his tongue out? It's just like, what? It's bad enough seeing a Bigfoot, but man, if I saw him doing that, I'd be really like, what in the world?
Yeah.
So cool. So, okay, well, let's continue on. So, you were describing the muscles, but I want to know more. What's going on with you guys? So you're watching this stuff. Are you just frozen? I mean, you guys are literally frozen.
I was. I mean, I don't know what anybody else was thinking. I think in a moment like that, there's so many things going on in your head. So like the very first thing that I think is kind of what Aleks was talking about, where I didn't see a Bigfoot. I saw a monster.
Yeah.
Like that's what this was. It was a monster. I didn't correlate anything that I had heard as a child or the picture with Patty, because it didn't look like that. It did not look like Patty.
Did the word gorilla go through your mind at all?
No,
like
not
giant
even.
gorilla. No,
Nope.
So no similarities to a gorilla. How about human? Giant human.
I mean, there were parts that were human-like. Like I said, he looked Native American in the face. Besides those big dark eyes.
Did he have high cheekbones?
Very high cheekbones. They were so like pronounced. The jawbones were very squared off and strong looking. He had no real upper lip, but his bottom lip kind of had a little puff to it.
So the upper lip was thin, lower lip big.
Yep, a little bit bigger, and then the mouth was just so big, so long, so like you probably could have fit a softball or cantaloupe in there, and he could have just chomped down on it with no problem. That's what it felt like anyway. I don't remember any. What's that?
Because you mentioned that it looked nothing like Patty. Do you think it could be a different type of Bigfoot, or maybe it's because you saw a male and that was a female?
I mean, I've had a lot of thoughts over the years, and I think, I don't know what anybody else thinks. I think that there's probably, if they have a human DNA in them, if they're related to us in any way, look at all of us on this screen. We all look very different from each other. Even if we have similar characteristics, we look very different, right? So,
Absolutely.
and there could be different genomes too, where, there's different subspecies, where the ones in the Northwest are, more adapted for that environment. So they have different features than the ones from the Northeast, and then, down South and all that. So, it could have been just a different type than Patty, because they're in different areas. I'm in the Northeast. She was in the Northwest. I didn't think it when I was 14, but obviously over the years, looking back on things, I kind of think that's probably what the case was. So
the Bigfoot you saw, I mean, just seems way more terrifying than the footage of Patty.
Yeah, when I saw Patty, like when I saw the picture of Patty as a kid, nothing about Patty looked scary to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know it was a blurry. You couldn't see some of the features on the face. You couldn't see the eyes really well. You couldn't see the mouth really well. But she just looked like a big, hairy, I don't know. Nothing about her scared me. Just didn't. But this was terrifying. This was, he was angry.
Well, okay, let's stop the truck right there. When you say angry, do you think it was angry?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I do.
For 100%. Sure.
Based on the facial expressions and
the
way it was moving.
Yeah, I mean, and when you look back on it, if you go through the things that happened over the first 2 days or 2.5 days, there were warning signs that we didn't see. The rocks were a warning sign. The smacking or smashing into the camper was a warning sign. That freak out up in the trees was a warning sign. And instead of turning around and going back or leaving, we kept going.
Yeah.
We went forward more. And it was like, we were in its living room. I mean, we were in its bedroom. We were, how would you feel if somebody was in your bedroom?
So when it was just staring at you and looked mean, did it have its teeth clenched, or were they kind of slightly mouth open, mouth agape?
It had his teeth clenched for almost the whole time after he did the little tongue thing or whatever. And then
can you demonstrate this tongue thing? Because I'm still like trying to picture. I'm sorry. You don't have to, but I'm just...
He stuck his tongue out just like this.
And how far did he put his head back like that? Okay.
Yep, almost all the way.
I wonder if he was inhaling at that moment.
I don't know. I kind of almost thought, like, for a while that, like a snake uses his tongue to smell its prey. I thought maybe that could be the case, but snakes and hominids are much different from each other, so it's probably not. But who knows? I mean, who knows if these things don't have, extra abilities? I'm sure they do.
Yeah, we don't know.
I believe they do, just from the things that I've seen. I think that they, at least physically, they are much more capable than we are. Bigger, stronger, faster, more cunning. At least in their environment, they're smarter than us. And so, so I don't know what that's about, but he was mad. And he if all that didn't tell you, then I think when he let go of that tree, he raised the one hand in the air, fist clench, and swung it down with such, I don't know, if he hit it, it probably could have smashed a rock. There was just so much power with it. And then he let out the most terrifying, bone-rattling howl, scream. It was almost like two vocals at the same time. It's this guttural, that rolling, like a lion has when it roars, has like that rolling kind of rattling, purr, growl, and then there's like this scream thing behind it. I don't know. It's very hard to explain, but it was so loud. You felt it, and that was when I got dizzy, like almost exactly at that moment. I just started feeling dizzy, and this is when that happened. That was when we started to move, and as we started to move from the left-hand side, where there's more overgrowth and bushes, another one popped out, and it was a female. I don't have a whole detailed description about this because that was it. Whatever happened, whatever woke my dad and Chris up, they woke up and they were like, we got to get out of here. And so we started to. So I only got a brief glimpse, but all I can tell you is it was a female. She was built like a female, not like him. She looked like she was postpartum, like she maybe had given birth. She had a pooch for a belly. She had kind of deflated breasts that hung down. Even her face looked more feminine to me, softer. And she didn't look like him. She had a conical head. Her shoulders weren't as wide. Her hair was way more thick. Beyond that, I couldn't give you much detail. But she
was her hair and his hair unkempt, or was it shiny and clean?
I wouldn't say it looked like they had, Pantene in their hair, but his hair was it didn't look like dreadlocks. It wasn't dirty, it looked like they probably groomed themselves. But they didn't
any kind of shine to it.
His didn't. Hers maybe had a little bit. She was a little darker colored than him. He was like a chestnut. She looked more black. And so, yeah, maybe a little bit more shine on her hair, but his I didn't notice. Again,
Did
he was
you
front
notice?
facing, and his hair was a little more thin.
Did you notice the hair wavy at all? Kind of slightly, little
Nope.
wavy, kinky.
Nope.
Any
Looked like straight.
just straight,
Yep.
straight.
Straight
Okay.
hair. Yep. Straight hair.
Did you ever notice any wispiness to the hair?
His for sure.
Looked wispy.
Yeah, his looked very wispy.
You know what I mean by wispy? You know how babies' hair, 1-year-old,
Yeah.
yeah, very thinner. It's kind of thin, and yet each hair shaft is also thinner.
Yes.
Is it more it blows easier and moves easier?
That's what his hair was like. Yes.
Okay,
Just like that.
That's interesting.
I remember even seeing the hair on the hand, like kind of as he moved the hand, the hair would move with it.
Okay. It's kind of an important point. Only because the hairs that I see that I believe are legit, they're so much more movable, more wispy, almost like a baby hair.
Yeah, his was just like that. I mean, even like the hair on his head, like I said, it was really thin. I've never even thought about like that, like baby hair. But yes, like as he moved, you could even see some kind of moving, as he moved back and forth, just on that little crest on the top, like I was talking about, where the hair kind of comes up like this. It would kind of fold over as he would rock back and forth. Yep.
Do you have any questions, Aleks, for Kyle?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I've been waiting to ask him some questions.
Well, go ahead and we'll go ahead and
sure.
If we can keep it to kind of what we're talking about, the hair and the face and the.
Absolutely.
So go ahead and ask away.
You mentioned how the male didn't have any resemblance to Patty, at least from what you could tell. And you mentioned the female looked pretty different from him. Did you, or have you looked at any point kind of comparing? I know you said you didn't have as detailed a description of the female, but would that compare closer to Patty or look anything similar or completely different?
I would say that, Patty to me looked more muscular than this female did. The hair, their hair looked similar as far as like thickness. But like I said, I didn't really get a whole great look at her face. Patty's breasts were much more enveloped and full too. I don't know. Patty looked buff to me when I looked at that footage. She looked like she had at least one or two babies, and I don't want to say that and sound, derogatory, but bodies change when you have a baby, at least right afterwards. And that's what she looked like. She looked like she maybe had just given birth or had given birth a few times. And this was kind of what was, what had happened.
Right. Now, going back to the male, I mean, out of all the details you saw, what has stuck with you the most? I mean, if there's one detail you remember in the greatest, amount you'd be able to describe it, which detail would that have been?
His calf muscles. It was like somebody took a stone, like a carved stone, and stuck it underneath his skin. I mean, they were so defined, and the muscles on when he was facing us and he kind of had his legs, one leg out from the side of the tree, you could see the muscle of the calf stick out both sides, inside and outside, and this was the front of him. So the calf's on the back. This thing stuck out a couple inches on both sides, maybe, at least towards the bottom of it. I mean, it just looked huge.
Right. Interesting. And my last question is, not related to the physical appearance, but at what point did you realize maybe these were Bigfoot or what people describe as Bigfoot or Sasquatch? Did that take a while, or when did that happen?
It took a while. Like I said, the only thing you're thinking is there's this giant monster. That's all I thought. Afterwards, when you have time to gather yourself, calm down, and that again, even just that, that's like a couple days at least before you really kind of gather yourself. And then you start going over like, what was this thing? What could it be? I had an interest in the topic as a child. I was always drawn to the weird fringe topics, UFOs, Loch Ness Monster, vampires, all that stuff. So after a little while, I thought, well, maybe, possibly it could be one of these things. And that was when I kind of tried to find, things that I could read that maybe other people were describing them differently in other places. And it kind of started it all, really. Was trying to figure out what it was, because I didn't know. I just didn't know.
Interesting. Thanks.
So I want to know, what are people's, what verbiage is going on between the family now?
Oh,
so you guys are on your way. You're on your way out of there.
Yeah.
What are you hearing?
The dads are cursing a lot. Basically it, and trying to get us to move faster. I moved pretty quick back then. His son was 9. And he was terrified, so he wasn't moving quick. So Chris was trying to move him along. Then he'd pick him up and carry him. Then he'd put him down and tell him, "You got to run." Like, we were followed out too. I mean, we were paralleled out of there until about maybe the last 100 yards before the camp is when it stopped. But clearly, it was not just one either. It was at least 2, maybe more. I don't know. It's hard to tell at that point. Just a lot of noise going on. But I mean, it was clearly, it was them, or at least one of them was following us out, because the noise started right as we started going out, and maybe 40 yards away from us into the woods the whole way out.
So a very obvious and inferred theory would be they're protecting an infant, and that's why they show themselves. It's, the reason I believe or theorized why Patty showed itself as kind of a kill deer deal. Kill deer move here. Look at me. Don't look over here. Follow me. Don't do this. Same with the Freeman footage. We talked about that with Michael Freeman. And, he believed too it was postpartum,
Yeah.
So, and that's why it showed itself. It's doing a distraction, and then it's going to zip off and go another direction, lead you away from the kid.
Well, looking back on it all, we thought it was the one. And then now there's this female there who looks like she had given birth. I mean, it all fits, right?
Yeah, it does fit. Don't know for sure, but that would be my guess. I mean, what's the one thing you're going to do, Kyle? You're going to protect your kid at any cost. I mean, you're going to give your life for the kid.
Yep.
There's no way that, but put yourself in a wild situation. You got a group of bad people, right? Your family, it's thinking this is bad people. You're going to do some kind of distraction move to lead them away, especially if your infant is maybe is not mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Or they just have this thing, instead of carrying the infant, they put it on the ground. They keep it on the ground, or put it up in a tree. Who knows?
Right.
You would think if they're afraid of the infant, they would just grab it. But it seems to be a behavior I've seen inferred over and over and over again with good footage.
Yep. Yeah.
It's inferred. What do you think on that, Aleks?
Oh, I've got a lot of thoughts. What immediately sort of came to mind was, given the history of reports in that area, where it seems almost every decade there's at least one fairly aggressive report where there's rocks being thrown, or Kyle's sighting in particular seems spectacular. In terms of even Bigfoot eyewitness standards, the fact that there was a female seen, and given the behavior of the male, and obviously this is all just total speculation, but perhaps that's why there was this sense of urgency or anger, because the female was that close. I mean, if we're to assume these things are as elusive as they are, they generally probably don't want to expose female or young, right, to a group of humans, especially if the humans happen to have a rifle or a pistol, as would have been the case with you guys. Guns clearly are generally in the woods, are associated with hunting or something maybe nefarious to a lot of different animals. So I thought that was really interesting. You don't hear a lot of eyewitness stories where a female is seen. So maybe that speaks to the spectacular nature of the encounter. It also made me think of Jonathan Wilkes' encounter, which happened, as I mentioned earlier, in Savoy State Forest, which is, maybe only half an hour to 40 minutes north of there, where there's been a lot of sightings. And when he saw the creature, there was a younger one there. It wasn't an infant exactly, but it was smaller. And the larger one roared at him in a similar way, where he said he felt it in his chest. And he, to the point where he didn't want to go back. He was on a route. It was a college job. He was working essentially in the state park, and he would refuse to go back to that spot, to the point where his supervisor confronted him and said, why aren't you doing your normal pickup in this area? And he essentially said, well, I saw these weird things. And, so that kind of reminded me of that detail as well. But very intriguing about the history of aggressive reports in that area in particular. I mean, is it possible that we don't know how long these things are fertile, or how long they can give birth? I mean, maybe there's a cyclical period to it. I don't know. Maybe it's the same group that's aggressive there. There's so many questions, but with the data that we do have, I mean, as great as Kyle's encounter is, I think it's awesome that there's so many good details from that, whereas some encounters might not have that level of detail.
They almost need a new classification for sightings like Kyle's, a double A,
Right, double A, yeah.
Yeah, because, man, when somebody can see the tongue, it's like, that is so, it's just, I don't know, it's a dream sighting. It's too bad, Kyle, that you weren't, in your 30s.
Oh, yeah. But I do think there's a classification for my sighting. I think they're called the PTSD sightings.
The PTSD.
There you go. There you go.
Definitely, yeah.
Good one, Kyle. And I can only imagine. Have you talked to this 9-year-old?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And what memories does he have?
For quite a while, he had no memory, none.
Oh, okay.
It started to come back slowly as he got older, into like his late teens. He started having nightmares, almost like what do they call that? Like a repressed memory or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, he started asking his dad about it, and it got so bad at one point that his dad ended up, having to kind of admit to it, which, those old school guys, they don't believe in things like this. They don't talk about things, especially in this area. I don't know what it's like in other areas, but up here, people don't talk about this stuff. You
know what I want to do? I would love to have you hypnotized to see if we can get any new details, and then film.
I'm down. Let's do it.
And film.
As long as you don't
think
make me do
Hypnotize
anything silly.
him, that would be great.
Aleks, how far away are you from Kyle?
Probably a few hours. I actually used to live in Connecticut, and hypnotherapy is really interesting. I know folks that have done hypnotic regression, and I actually did some hypnosis back in the day. My mom studied it for a while and was
really?
a certified hypnotherapist, and she's never really done it in that sense of memory regressions, but a lot of the clients and folks she would take on would be to help them quit smoking. Yeah. And there's a lot of positive kind of affirmations that go on when a person is in this sort of state, and it can help you improve academic work. There's a variety of applications for hypnosis beyond the sort of the mainstream trope of you can make someone dance around a circle like a chicken, or do something like those fake kind of the hypnotherapist kind of stuff that you see, hypnosis shows, I should say, you see on TV or in the media. So it's actually, a very interesting field. And I've heard it done for a few Bigfoot encounters as well, where folks that had either traumatic encounters or encounters that were in the past where they
with any luck remember. Was there any luck in those?
Yeah, the one I know of, a researcher who's actually with the BFRO up here in New Hampshire, had an encounter while younger with in upstate New York, I believe, and was able to recall some details. I don't exactly know. I just know the basic story. I don't know the full details, but obviously when it comes to the sort of UFO topic, I know that's been done, like the Betty and Barney Hill case. Hypnosis has been administered in certain abduction cases. So, I mean, the applications for it can be wide ranging. Combat veterans that repress those memories. You see an atrocity, you want to put that in the back of your mind. Humans often will rationalize things away like that. So it's a way to kind of dig into the mind a little bit and get you to admit something in a state where you're not as vulnerable to, exposing trauma to yourself, essentially.
I just think it would be really cool to film it live if Kyle would be willing.
Yeah, I got a buddy who does it actually.
Oh, really?
Funny enough, yeah. Yep.
Does he do regressions?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, well, we should all talk. That would be an interesting show, even if that's all we filmed. We could air it live, and it would just be absolutely phenomenal.
Oh yeah, that'd be huge.
Probably be good for you too.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it's just, you get to a point where like through other people is really where I found some peace, right? So I stayed out of the woods for 21 years. I did not go near them. I was scared of the dark as an adult. I mean, like to the point where if I couldn't see what was over there, I was like almost panic attack. You know what I mean? Like this was it changed my life like in so many ways. So I went to counseling. Never told the counselor, because what do you tell a counselor? In the 90s, I saw Bigfoot. I saw a caveman. I saw a giant Indian in the woods that was 8 feet tall, shaking a tree. And no, they would throw me in an asylum. So I had to find ways to kind of deal with this myself. And what I found was when I would watch shows, like I remember one of the first ones I watched, I believe was called like Bigfootville, maybe.
Yeah, I remember that show.
Remember that?
Oklahoma.
Right. And so people there had experiences. It was one of the first ones I remember where people were talking about seeing these things. And that I felt like, all right, so there's other people. I'm not alone. And they're describing something that's similar, but different. So maybe these things can look different. Maybe they don't all look like Patty.
Yeah.
And that was where I started to find that, that courage and that peace again, because it really was, man, like it's a monster. It's just a monster. Like that's all I thought forever. And when you're told your whole life the monsters don't exist, and you're staring one in the face and it's looking at you like it's going to rip you in half, and it could, it's a life-changing thing.
What time of year again?
This was summer.
Summer, okay.
Yeah, it was summer. I don't remember exactly what month. Maybe
it was summer.
July. Yeah.
Okay. So, have you ever heard? I've never heard one this close. Not where I know the person. I mean, I've read some probably, but have you run into anybody that's even been near this close, or maybe you have, Aleks?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of quite a few reports of tents being messed with to the point where people, I mean, the notable sighting with wildlife biologist John Meinzinski having this sort of weird encounter.
Oh, with the pine cones and
with the sort of elbow.
Slapping the kneecap, I think he thought it was.
Yeah, kneecap or elbow or something like that. Yeah. I mean, I've heard of those kinds of reports. I've heard of a gentleman in Colorado tell me a story about, feeling its face up against the tent and, kind of feeling that, but not exactly a visual. In terms of that close, I mean, another report from the New England area, from northern Vermont, one of the first people I interviewed regarding their sighting, a guy named Dax Rushlow, had a sighting on a snowmobile while he was a teenager coming back home near the Canadian border in northern Vermont, and took a shortcut and came face to face with this thing and sort of described it. That's one of the the reason I remember it so well is it's one of the first encounters that I got to really see the emotion of somebody recollecting something they truly felt happened to them, as well as just the detail that were there, and the fact that he had mentioned that it's sort of the look in its eyes were unlike that of a deer or some other wildlife that sort of just does and reacts to things that happen in the environment. This thing was almost angry or agitated, that they were even face to face. It was a pretty close distance, but I've never heard a report, at least that I could recollect right now, that has that as much detail in terms of what was happening all at once. You're talking about a sequence of events and then seeing a female after that. I mean, that's a very unique type of sighting. Definitely
kind
one
of the
that,
Yeah, it's the icing on the cake.
It'd be one thing to have just seen that male creature and that would have been it. I mean, that would still be sticking with you for the rest of your life, Kyle.
Gosh.
But the fact that you saw this female, I mean, that just gives us an extra piece of information that can allow us to speculate. As you said, Doug, perhaps this was a sort of protecting an infant kind of thing. I mean, we'll never probably know, which is the unfortunate part, but it's just another detail we have.
Yeah. I mean, that infant could have been on the back of the female, or it could be these things protecting a female.
Right.
In this case, the male stood out in the open. Could have been just him trying to protect the female, and the female thinking, no, you don't do that. And the female coming in to yell at basically to get the male out of there. I mean,
right.
I'm going back there for the first time since this happened.
Wow.
Yeah. We're making plans now to do it with Chris Reinhardt from Discover Sasquatch.
Okay.
Yep, be the first time.
And you're going to film and show this publicly?
Everything, yep.
Yeah, we'd love to get you back and show a clip of the area. Is it possible that the female did have maybe a juvenile on its back? I mean, that you just didn't get to study it or see it long enough?
Yeah, I didn't. Everything that happened prior to that was enough to scramble your brain. I mean, whether you're 30 or 14, I think.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, it's different. If I knew then what I know now, probably would have been a completely different scenario. I would have been able to approach it much differently. I know more about them, even though I don't know, everything. But just in knowing that they exist and that they're all different, and probably would have at least given me some peace of mind while this thing's standing there, instead of not knowing and going, like I'm in a horror movie right now, Yeah, but I didn't get a good look. I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't.
Where was the longest hair on the male?
Probably covering the shoulders.
Okay. Up on the shoulders.
Probably covering the shoulders.
Did you happen to notice at the base of the arm, under the bicep, the hair? Did you notice any?
Like the armpit and all that?
No. Well, yeah, underneath. I mean, was there the one that I saw at the side of the road had very long hair under its forearms on the bottom.
So he as it came down, right, shoulders were long, got thin here around the elbow, and then it started getting longer right at the middle of the forearm down towards the hand, and then the hair hung over the hand and a little bit off the wrists. It hung down maybe, I don't know, 3 inches off, hanging off the arm. Yeah, it wasn't extremely long though.
Super interesting. Aleks, fire away. I know you got something. You're thinking some question here.
I mean, it's just, again, it's so interesting having that amount of details, and it's something obviously you're carrying with you. And I do got to say, I mean, it's good that you're talking about it. I think you clearly, that means that you're in a place where you feel comfortable enough to share it. I mean, so many people that I've interviewed and spoken to, they are so tight-lipped about it, and it's almost like a burden, a weight that's on them. I mean, imagine being someone with a semi-respectable position, in your career or whatever, and you have this story, and especially in the New England region. I mean, that's the fact that you are, the Connecticut, Massachusetts area that happened in Massachusetts. I'm very familiar with the attitude that people have here towards this subject, and especially the sightings prior to like 2010, going back, and many of which I've encountered. I've spoken to so many folks in New Hampshire alone, very similar sort of thing, where there is just a tight-lipped attitude. It's almost like prying teeth. And that constant theme of, well, I thought it was a monster or caveman, or like I said, the scarecrow creature. There was really not a connection to Bigfoot until much later. I've heard from people saying, well, it's one of my buddies, Brian, had an encounter with a tent incident. I think it wasn't until Monster Quest that he actually, this happened in the early 2000s, and it wasn't later until seeing Monster Quest that he kind of thought, well, maybe this was something Bigfoot related, because there was a roar and a guttural feeling he felt from this vocalization. People saying, well, I didn't know that anybody else had encounters until I went onto a Facebook group, or I saw that there were other encounters. So there's a variety of senses. When the media and internet kind of began to really take off, that's when more people in the New England area seem to have come to that realization. That's happened to me a number of times. I've heard very similar sort of thing from folks. So it just, obviously, you're not the only one who's had that kind of encounter. And I'm sure you've already looked into some of the stuff on October Mountain, but I can send you a bunch of that. And if you talk to the Squatchachusetts guys, they have had a lot of activity out there before. I believe they've cast a print or two from out there. They've had a lot of stuff happen, and it seems to be an active area that continues to produce encounters. And obviously, we're left to speculate why that is and why the level of aggression is there. But it fits the pattern for me for many of the sightings that are in that part of New England. So again, I can't say I'm surprised. Obviously, I'm delighted at the fact that you have such a vivid recollection, and just the details you have are fantastic.
Were there any smells at all, Kyle?
I don't remember any. I know people say it a lot,
Okay.
but I don't remember anything. I think I probably remember if I smelled, what these people, like a lot of people describe, rotting garbage, dog urine, skunk. I didn't smell any of that.
Okay. What would be the way you describe the smell, Aleks, from all the reports? I mean, what's the most common stink? I always say rotten. It smells like a rotten body to me, but.
I mean, kind of just what Kyle said: skunk, garbage, rotting flesh. Wet dog is one I know of a sighting near one of my research areas in New Hampshire, where this gentleman was kind of paralleled by this thing. He described wet dog. I've noticed a lot of folks that have had sightings that happened in the past describe gorilla house as the smell. Having a recollection of going to the primate area or the gorilla house at the zoo and describing that smell in the accounts that do have smell, and
which is a little skunky for big primates. It's
like a musk. I don't know. It's a kind of musky sort of smell. And I've only had a handful of times where I've smelt anything really unusual that I couldn't obviously say was Sasquatch, but very kind of bad smells. You get bad smells in the woods. You can walk through a peat bog or find a dead porcupine and get a whiff of that every once in a while. But like I said, the folks that have described it, it's been pretty consistent. Wet dog, primate house, skunk, that sort of thing seem to be the most consistent. And I've always found this very interesting about smell in some of these sightings, how it doesn't happen all the time. It's not just relegated to the skunk ape of Florida. It's all across North America. You have occasional reports with smell, and we know that gorillas can control their scent glands when angry or agitated. So, I mean, you don't always have to have a smell associated with an encounter. So, but the ones that do have it, it's interesting. But it's just another thing we can kind of look at and kind of try to use these. I have
a weird smell story. I don't think I've ever shared it. So we were in a group of guys. I'm trying to think. It was 1, 2, 4 of us, and we're in the woods right on the Canadian border, and we were in an area where there's been a lot of sightings, like a lot, on this particular property, not only by neighbors, by all sorts of people. So we're up there and we're doing research and looking for sign in this one area. And one of the guys is a singer. And I said to him, I said, it ain't going to hurt anything. I've never tried this. Why don't you start singing while we're walking around and doing stuff? So he did. He's singing whatever. And the moment he stopped singing, we all got blasted with this horrible stink when he stopped singing. So we walked a quarter mile away and did the same thing. He sang a song. He quit. We got blasted. Walked another quarter mile. Same thing. We did it like 5 times in a row. It's not what I expected.
Maybe it was a pheromone. Maybe you guys are serenading something.
I don't know. Well, this is the guy that owned the property. So it was really an interesting experiment. I don't even know what I was expecting. No one's ever asked him to start singing. Just the fact he's a singer. So I just wish we were all shocked, all of us, and we could all smell it. It wasn't like a little smell. It was a blast. It was like we were getting blasted. So interesting story. The more you know, the less you know.
Yeah, when it comes to smells, though, the pheromone chips are Those are a doozy, Doug.
They're potent, aren't they?
Oh, and believe me, ever since I bought some last year, obviously per your recommendation through Greg Bambenek and Dr. Juice, I've had to fly with them multiple times, and you would not believe the amount of layering that is involved in keeping that scent, so my suitcase doesn't become a biological weapon.
Alex, Hychek, you haven't smelt them yet, have you?
Oh, I've smelled them.
Oh, you have?
You smell them once, you never forget.
Yes, exactly. It's a very memorable smell.
I can only imagine, because I just got a puppy not too long ago, and to potty train it, there's this little plastic fire hydrant that has dog pheromones on it.
Oh.
So when you want to wrap that thing, I was like, I didn't expect it to smell like that. But as soon as I cut the top off, I was like, holy cow. I can't even imagine what primate pheromones smell like.
Not good.
Well, next time Aleks sees you, I'll have him slip one in the back seat.
I've always joked.
Nice.
When we're out in the field, we've joked about putting, if somebody's being a jerk in camp, we'll just throw a pheromone chip in their tent while they don't know and just see what happens.
Hide it.
Maybe they'll get Bigfoot angry.
I never played any jokes with those, but I sure wanted to.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've all seen Grumpy Old Men where the guy, I think somebody puts a million of those. He puts dead fish.
Yep.
Throws them under the seat and hides them. Yeah.
It's like the opposite of an axe bomb. We used to do. We used to take those Axe spray cans at summer camps and stab them and just throw them in someone's room, and the pressure would basically kind of just release it all at once. This is like the opposite of that.
Yeah, don't try that at home. That's done by professionals.
Right. Yeah.
Gosh.
So we're coming up at the 2-hour mark. Is there anything, Kyle or Aleks, that you didn't get to cover that you wanted to mention?
I don't think so. Like I said,
well, why don't you just let me stop you. Plug your podcast, both of you. Kyle, go.
So my podcast is called EnCryptid Connections, EN capital C cryptid, like cryptid. It's new. It's like 3.5 weeks old. It's doing really well. I'm pretty proud actually of that. I've had some wonderful guests on. I've been very fortunate. Doug was just on. I messed up. I was supposed to have Aleks on tonight, and I forgot what time zone I was in. Thank God Aleks is such a nice guy and a gentleman. He agreed to, reschedule. But it's anything cryptid, anything weird, anything strange. I do, interview researchers, but we're doing some other stuff. We do roundtable discussions about different topics. Like this week, we're talking about Jewett City vampires, which was, a family in Connecticut that they thought, potentially were killed by some kind of vampiric disease, which wasn't, ended up being tuberculosis. But, back then, people had weird explanations for normal things. So we're just, trying different stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
And we will we'll have Aleks post a link when the show goes up. Absolutely. This is for anybody watching, this is going to be a pre-recorded show. So our whole schedule got screwed up this week too. Same thing. It does happen. Aleks.
Yeah. I mean,
you've been podcasting forever.
Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to say, obviously Kyle, thanks for sharing your encounter. And I liked how this turned out. I wasn't sure if we were just going to have kind of a free for all, but I think it was a really cool dissection almost of your sighting, and just, being able to draw from knowledge that we have and kind of put that towards your sighting. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Definitely. And I look forward to talking to you further, Kyle. So yeah, I've been doing a podcast. I kind of did a hiatus over the summer, and I'm going to be bringing it back. It's more of a live stream show, I should say, on YouTube, called Sasquatch Out of the Shadows. I kind of ended over the summer at episode 100. So it started when COVID began, and I made it to 100 live streams, and now I've done a couple over. But I had Doug on a few times, I believe back in late 2020, which was really interesting. And I think that's when you were kind of just starting your online presence before Untold and all that stuff, which is really cool. That was awesome to see that.
It's when I came out of hiding.
Exactly. Yeah, I had to track you down through White Wolf for the White Wolf website, which was fun. But so we've done a lot on that channel, and then what I'm most probably known for is Bigfoot Beyond the Trail on the Small Town Monsters YouTube channel, and we basically go around all around North America and document Sasquatch cases, look for evidence, and really try to tell the truth. And there's a lot of unfortunate stuff in this subject, a lot of BS out there. And, we just are trying to bring some sanity back into the topic, and especially in the online sphere. So, just check out my website, Petakov Media. It's got links to all that stuff. There's a ton of stuff archived, so you can have a field day with that.
Awesome
Very
stuff.
cool.
I love
Very cool. Thank you guys so much. And it was fun getting deep into your sighting. I think I put on the thumbnail, the anatomy of a Bigfoot. And that's what we did. Kind of broke down what you saw.
Yeah, this is really cool.
So thanks. And Aleks, you got any last words?
No, thanks. Oh. There we go.
I should say, Aleks Hychek, do you have any last words?
No, just thanks for the both of you. That was an incredible story. I mean, the amount of detail, you just don't get to hear about that stuff. Just the facial features and just
and the junk.
And the junk.
Yeah.
And the junk.
It's rare. There's some sightings, not many.
Yeah, it's rare. We got to breed. So anyhow, good night, guys. Thanks for showing up, and we really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
I call you up in the middle of the night, been bothered by dreams, ain't feeling alright. You give me comfort, say just give it some time. By the end of our talk, I'm feeling just fine. You and I will always know where we belong. This ain't no ordinary love we got going on. I'll pick you up in the 59 Ford. We head on down the road until we get bored. Just you and me and the sun and the wind. If the rain should stop falling, we'll head on home again. Everybody else can see where we belong. Oh, ain't no ordinary love we got going on. At the end of the world, together forever is one, and I'll wait. If ever you should be in doubt, and I'll pray they never can pull us apart, and I'll wait for the time when we'll be together every day. But I know if ever we'll be led astray, that I'll find my way back home to you again. At the end of the world, together forever is one, and I'll wait. If ever you should be in doubt, and I pray they never can pull us apart, and I'll wait. At the end of the world, together forever is one, and I'll wait. If ever you should be in doubt, and I pray they never can pull us apart, and I'll wait for the time when we be together every day. But